How do you find your soul career? And once you found it, how do you ensure that it doesn't burn you out completely and you end up hating the job that you once loved? I'm Kalilah Reynolds, and it's time for another episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. My guest today is Lisandra Rickards. She's back. She's the CEO of Soul Career. All right, Lisandra is back. Welcome back, girl.
Thank you so much for having me, Kalilah.
So today we're talking about soul careers for entrepreneurs, and Soul Career is the name of your podcast, right?
Yes, and of my company too.
And your entire company is all about finding your passion.
Yes.
Many entrepreneurs, we find something that we're passionate about and we got to build this business and get this business up, and then poof, what happens?
Yes, and then they start hating their passion because it burns them out, right? So the first step to a soul career for an entrepreneur is, yes, understand what makes you come alive when you're working. That's the first step, identifying the passion. But then you have to figure out the business model that allows you to incorporate that passion into a lifestyle that you actually want to live.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, so there's a lot of hustle culture in entrepreneurship. Burn yourself out, burn the candle at both ends until you make it. That's changing now, coming out of the pandemic and the focus on mental health and burning out, etc. However, it's very easy for an idea or a product that you want to build to suck all your energy and life force out of you while you're trying to build it, because you haven't thought about the business model around that product, around that passion that you want to build. For example, with myself, I know that I have chronic burnout, and I know that whatever I do, I want to build something once and sell it multiple times, which is the course-based model to start, for example. And so the lifestyle that I want to lead is one of learning and sharing, but not of constant content creation. I knew that from the start. And so I knew that I loved creating training programs. I did that at the Branson Center when I was CEO. And I wanted to do that in my own company, but I wanted to build it once and then have many people take it over and over again. So that was a model that's gonna allow me to live the life of freedom, location independence. I wanna work from Kingston, from Spain, from the US when I want, right? So if I want that life, I have to make sure that the business itself can support the life that I wanna live.
So how do you get there? Because I may start my business because I love making handmade soaps.
Yeah.
But I don't have any business training.
Yeah.
I just like making these soaps and trying to sell them to people who like my soaps.
Yeah.
So how do we get how do we get there to where you are?
Yeah, that is a great example, because many people are in that situation. They start a business because they like the product or they like doing the service. If you're gonna go into business, you have to become a business person. You cannot neglect that side of things. You have to embrace it. That is going to be the reality, or you're going to find yourself in trouble. If you have a wall against knowing your numbers, against figuring out the business model, then you're not ready to go into business if you have that wall. That is my perspective. Otherwise, you're going to be in for a very rude awakening when you have to do all the things. So first is just an openness to learn what being in business is about. And then the second thing is, what is a business model, right? A business model is how you make revenues, what are the costs in the business, what's the value that you're giving in exchange for money and in exchange for having all these expenses. That's kind of the model. So when you think about how are you going to generate sales, what are the big expenses, and what's the life I want to lead, you have to match those things up. I'll give you an example. Let's say you love fashion and you want to build a business around fashion. There are a number of things you could do. You could go and work for Louis Vuitton and get a steady paycheck. Might not be a big one, but a steady paycheck, and have some predictability in your life. That's one model. You could become a fashion designer yourself. You'll have a lot of uncertainty in income for a long time. And there's a whole model around building a fashion design business, right? You have to create the patterns, and then you do a whole line, and then you have a show, and there's a whole model around that.
Right.
Or you could just dress up really well and go work at a fancy corporate, Sagicor, EXIM, just dress really nice and show your love for fashion that way. The decision that you make on which of those models you're going to follow in your life is going to be dependent on your appetite for risk, your need for stability and predictability of income, or your need for adventure and freedom and life, right? And with that lifestyle and personality in mind, then you can choose a model for how to express your love for fashion through your work.
So can't I just hire somebody to take care of the business end and I be just the creative and visionary behind the brand and the business?
Well, Kalilah, have you been able to do that? Have you been able to do that?
I haven't tried that strategy yet.
Yeah. What many people are not earning enough to be able to do that to start. So even at the beginning, you have to know something about how business works. So you still have to train yourself in the beginning. And then once you do have enough money to hire someone to figure out the business side of things, you actually need to know what's happening in your business as the founder, as the entrepreneur. You actually have to know how much money is coming in and out so that you're not exploited, so that you know what opportunities to go after, etc. So you have a duty to the business to be aware. And once you get beyond that point and you're aware and you know what questions to ask and you know how to track to make sure the advice you're getting is good, at that point, then I'll say yes, outsource and farm it out at that point. But you have to know something first before you go that route.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so is this the cure for burnout?
Thinking about how your work will affect the kind of life that you want to live, that's one piece of the cure for burnout. Burnout comes in it attacks many areas of your life at once, right? So there's a physical exhaustion that happens, there's a mental exhaustion, there's a loss of meaning. When you reach really deep in burnout, you're in an existential crisis where life doesn't mean anything, work doesn't mean anything. What's the point of doing all this work? It's just the same thing over and over again. And then there is the loss of relationships, like you're isolated from your family, that can lead to burnout as well. So the cure for burnout is really understanding all the different types of rest that you need as an individual, not just physical rest or mental rest, and actually giving yourself the things that you need in order to emerge from the depths that you're in when you're in deep burnout. Yeah.
Useful stuff, very good stuff, Lisandra. So tell us how we can find you on social media.
Sure, so you can find Soul Career at Soul Career on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and you can find me, Lisandra Rickards, at List Rickards everywhere as well. Mostly on Instagram though.
Awesome. We'll definitely check you out. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Kalilah.
Here's a recap of Lisandra's key points. The first step to a soul career is figuring out a business model that allows you to incorporate your passion into a lifestyle that you actually want to live. Many people start a business because they like the product or service they're providing, but you cannot neglect the business side of things or you'll run into trouble. Burnout can include physical and mental exhaustion and loss of meaning in life. The cure is to identify all the different types of rest you need. That's it for this episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. Check out their website, eximbankja.com, and check out my website, KalilahReynolds.com, for a summary of this episode. Till next time.
Let's get this money.